blown away yesterday. I came to see Alok's keynote, and I thought it was really inspiring. And yeah, the DeSci London crew have done an amazing job organizing this conference. So yeah, we're really excited for this panel. It's as Alok said, who cares about investors? It's absolutely true that the most important people in the room are absolutely the builders and the scientists. But this is just really to give you a flavor of the investors who are based locally or in Europe who are really interested in this theme and who are available to you if you have ideas that you want to be exploring, developing, and seeking capital for. Obviously, venture capital is only one type of capital. You obviously have grants and other forms, but this panel here will really just focus on the VC side of things. So just by introducing myself, I'm Julia. I'm a partner at Local Globe. We are based across the road from the Crick, so we're super local. And we are, we're one of the funds that are invested or that are interested in this theme, not yet invested, but are very curious. And just to introduce my lovely panelists who are joining us, Lena from Stride, we've got Max from Amino, Sean from Backed, and Laura from AWS. So I'm going to go and ask each one of you to introduce yourselves, your fund, what got you interested in DeSci, and I guess some of you have made investments in the space already, so maybe a quick word on those.
Perfect, thank you, Julia. Hello, everybody. Lena from Stride here, operator turned investor, scientist back in the day. Stride, we are artisan capital, so we're small, nimble, real fun. 100 million AUM based in London. Really have this operator mindset, investor skill set, as we say. Most of the investment team are ex-operators, so we love helping to build companies. And you know, at the end of the day, it really is about people backing great people and builders that want to solve big issues in the real world and talk about a more fundamental issues and industry that we have in science. So very excited.
Max from Amino Collective, quite similar CV, I guess. Scientist, spent 5 years in academia in synthetic biology, then I became an operator, 4 years in the startup world, and then VC full-time with Amino Collective based in Berlin, pre-seed and seed stage. Anything in between health and bio, really, with so far one investment in the DeSci space, Molecule, which you've just seen Chris on stage. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more about that at a later point.
Hi guys, I'm Sean. I'm from Backed. So I lead the Web3 investment team at Backed, and I used to be kind of similar but much lower background than you guys. I did a lot of researches at Imperial before, in the UK Dementia Research Center on EEG, sleep, and Alzheimer's diseases. And I did that while I was in uni. At the same time, I founded my own startup, exited my own startup, and also founded Imperial Blockchain Society. So if any of you guys are interested in Web3 at Imperial or any of the London universities, feel free to contact me. And then after graduation, I just joined Backed as a fund. We are a small seed/pre-seed focused fund, 200 million AUM, and we focus on 3 pillars: Web3, biotech, and AI. So we also invested in Molecule, which you've seen Chris on stage. Personally very interested in DeSci because when I was doing researches, I realized there was a lot of opaqueness in the space and a lot of incentives that we could design around to overcome these challenges. So excited to see how the space goes, and on to you.
Hi, I'm Laura Modiano. I'm not an investor. I work at Amazon Web Services. However, I do work with investors, and we do have a lot of programs for founders. So my team is business development. We work with investors such as yourselves. I work with all of you. I very happily interact with Lena very frequently. So the way that we work is we support VCs and then their portfolio companies to get them from founding to commercial success in every way that we have a lot of programs specifically geared to founders, that they get specific support, specific access to programs because of the investment they have to VCs. In addition to that, we have multiple accelerators. So very, very early stage, we have the Startup Blocks Accelerator, which helps you to ideate, build, grow. We also have a lot of training, and then we have impact accelerators, fintech accelerators, healthcare life science accelerators, health equity accelerators, which is very related to DeSci. And we're launching other ones in the process as well, specifically in Web3, in partnership with VCs. So we're very linked and an extension to the offering of investors, getting startups ready for investment in the case of it.
Does this one work? This one? No? Yes, great. Lena, I just wanted to ask you, I know that you've recently made an investment in the DeSci space. Just for everyone, maybe you can give everyone a sense of the company and I guess your process for getting to conviction within the context of Stride.
Sure. So it's still not been announced, so worst kept secret. But having done a bit of neuroscience and pharmacology back in the day, I think the challenges, the reproducibility crisis that we have, and it really is a crisis, has always been top of mind. 60-70% of research that cannot be reproduced done in the last decade. I mean, show me another $1.5 trillion industry with such a massive inefficiency rate, right? It's crazy. And it is a complex, multifaceted issue because there isn't sort of, you can't fix one little thing because that's going to have a knock-on effect on something else in the system, right? So it does require a certain level of ambition and the technology as an enabler to really recreate and try to recreate an entire system. And then we look at science, right? I mean, it has to be fair, right? Findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. And then you look at blockchain and the underlying, distributed ledger, and you're like, oh wow, like this is literally a match made in heaven. And so in terms of, a project that can really reshape an entire industry, I mean, it's a huge lift, right? Like we're really tackling here not just the way academic research is shared, but also peer-reviewed and ultimately funded. It's a big lift, but if it works, I mean, talk about building iconic companies, right? So definitely a journey where generalists fund. So, it's good luck kind of explaining all those nuances in science to your partnership. But then, having incredible founders definitely helps. So here we are, very excited.
Great. Nice. Maybe I can ask you the same question from your perspective on how you build conviction in molecule, and maybe give some of the background, because I think you invested in the very first round. So there was, it's still a nascent space, despite the level of interest here, and lots of people who have attended yesterday and today shows just how much interest there is in this area. But at the time, it would be great to just hear the story, the background, and what got you to conviction at that point in time.
So Amino invested in Molecule 2.5 years ago, which in DeSci terms is an eternity, I think. And there was an almost infamous meeting between Manu, our fund manager, and Tyler, one of the co-founders of Molecule, in South Africa. And I think they were both on vacation, but they managed to meet up. And it all boiled down to, I think, two aspects of our investment thesis. There's we either want to back companies that can create a category or companies that can win a category. And in the case of Molecule, huge question marks, of course, but the potential to do both, really. And since then, we've just seen the development over the past 2.5 years and seen the amazing projects that are adjacent to Molecule that finally want to maybe put IP NFTs onto the marketplace that Molecule creates. And it just turned out to yeah, to grow into what we see here today, basically. So we, with a lot of conviction but big question marks, we continue to observe the space, and since then, really, our conviction only grew, and we're now ready. We're about to announce Fund 2. We're ready to double down on DeSci, really. So I guess in this pre-seed stage, you need to take these kind of risks, and in this particular case, it really paid off, because now we feel like we're ahead of a lot of other funds that are now starting to maybe briefly look at the space, and already have a great network of operators within DeSci that we can ask when we don't understand something, which happens a lot.
That's great. That's great to hear, and I think it has been really. I mean, it's phenomenal to see that the expansion of Molecule. I was, been wondering at what point in time do you think that they reach product market fit, which may be an interesting question to come back to, but Sean, when we were talking initially about this panel, one of the things that you mentioned you were really interested in particular around DeSci, removing publication bias, and wondering if you can elaborate on that a little bit, or share your perspective on your journey with Molecule, whichever.
Yeah, okay, cool, yeah. So this publication bias is one of the things which I've noticed when I was doing my researches back in the uni days, which is basically that we had a lot of data, but a lot of these data weren't pretty. So, in order for us to publish a paper or get some sort of citations by other people, we want to make sure that the data we publish is pretty. And then we just do all sort of things to make it pretty. But then, with that, a lot of the data that you publish isn't exactly the data which you've got. And some of the uglier data, you just discard them, or you pretend they don't exist. So that's a problem, because a lot of the times that also forces kind of people, researchers, to chase for better and better results. But then not everything is going to be perfect when you experiment, and you're supposed to make a lot of mistakes. So that's essentially what publication bias is. You biased to publish what will make you go on a research paper. But is there any ways for us to design a system to incentivize people to publish those data which aren't perfect? That's one of the things which I think DeSci has the capabilities to do, because all of the data, even the failed data, have some sort of values in them. But who's going to buy it? What's the liquidity market here? The market for a lot of the research data at this point is rather opaque. So there's a limited amount of buyers, sellers, and what if we could open it up to a wider market? And would that help with publication bias? To be fair, we don't know yet, because the experiment is just starting with whether DeSci could help with all these things. But hopefully one day, with all of the incentivizations around how we could purchase data, incentivize people to publish all of their data instead of just the pretty data, would help us to form better results or conclusions around certain researches. So that's kind of the idea about publication. In terms of Molecule, so to be fair, when the fund invested in Molecule, I wasn't in back yet. From what I understand from Molecule, the IP NFT is going to be quite huge. And the reason why I say so is, for example, when we go for funding for a certain experiment, I think this goes with every single research institutions. Part of your fundings is going to go to the school or go to whoever the administrator is, and also part of your publication results, part of your IPs, part of your future incomes is going to be shared with whoever the school name is. For me, that was the case for Imperial. And to a point, that was fair, because they did help to provide us with a platform to research. But at the same time, a lot of these IPs weren't controlled by us, weren't controlled by the researchers, it was controlled by whoever the name was for the research institute. And for a lot of the scientists, it's probably not fair, spending years on research just to get your IP controlled by someone else. So with IP NFTs, we have more flexibilities around how we want to control the IP. Doesn't mean that we could control it, but it just means that we have more options around how we want to structure our IPs and rights around researchers. So that could potentially also encourage more research fields to be developed, more research interests to be developed, and therefore potentially also propel the researches to be produced at a larger scale. So that's kind of the reason why we keep on backing Molecule, and we hope to continue the journey with them.
Thanks, Sean. And Laura, I guess in your role at AWS, you get a chance to work with a lot of different types of companies, and for the builders in the room, how do you work with companies in helping them grow and scale, and in particular in the DeSci space?
Of course, thank you. So first of all, we want to see as many startups created and also become successful. So we have sort of a three-pronged approach. First of all, we want the founders to have all the right tools, resources, right infrastructure to build, to train, for us to help them get trained, to get certifications, to get the right tools available and the right infrastructure. We want them to become commercially successful so that there are more stories that both are inspiring but also being told within the space. And we want return on investment to the investors so that there is continued funding that goes back to support the community of founders within the space. Specifically myself, so I, until recently, was head of healthcare, life sciences development in EMEA. I'm part of a broader group that looks at vertical success. We also have a Web3 team in the space. Everyone in both these teams are ex-operators, ex-founders, have deep sectoral knowledge. We have people who are biochemical engineers, researchers, geneticists. Myself, I used to be head of strategy for genetic testing in England nationally for the NHS. I used to work at UCLH. I have a colleague here, Alex, who you should talk to, who also comes from the lab space himself. Everyone in my team was either an ex-investor, ex-founder, ex-researcher, clinician, etc. On the Web3 space as well, we have, again, ex-founders, researchers. We just hired a European-based or an EMEA-based Web3 team, someone from OKX, that really have a very, very deep knowledge to give advice to founders themselves, but also to talk to investors about honing the thesis, advice on where things are going, and to look at scale, not just at each specific company. So we can go in, we can look at what you need to build, we can look at total cost optimization, we can look at data structuring, we can look at the right tools, whether it is compute, storage, AI, ML, infrastructures. We have more than 200 products. Now we have the Amazon managed blockchain solutions for enterprise to build on blockchain specifically. We have accelerators, as I said earlier, Startup Loft Accelerator, which is taking very early stage founders, specifically within this space, trying to build and get ready for investment. So we really focus not just on the generalist, but on the very specific, and then amplifying all these stories with go-to-market, with partnerships, with the Amazon Partner Network, with Marketplace, to find every potential opportunity for commercial success and growth with people who specifically care about healthcare, life science, and food.
Great. I guess maybe bringing it back to what's been happening in Web3. This is, I don't know who wants to answer this, but I guess occurrences in the Web3 space, have they impacted your conviction in DeSci, or how are you thinking about that? Maybe Sean, you are given how close you are from your crypto perspective, how do you think that influences DeSci as an investor or as a builder?
Yeah, so Web3, of course, has gone through the roller coasters in the past probably 2 years. Personally, I started in crypto back in 2018 when I was in high school, and everybody around me was just talking about how Bitcoin was going to the sky. And I bought some Bitcoin and I lost most of my money during that investment. That was a very painful lesson to learn. But then that was when I started to look at what else is there in blockchain beside Bitcoin. And I think we're just at the same point right now where you see a lot of newcomers coming to this space and they start to look at what's there in blockchain. And so this is why during 2018, 2019, and 2020, a lot of great startups in the space were born. And that's because that not only the fact that people who came into the cycle and decided to stay start to innovate, but also people who are investing in the space or looking around in the space are starting to explore more opportunities rather than those Dogecoins or like Ethereum or whatever, right? Ethereum is great, by the way. So I think it only helps people to put more attention to what else is there in blockchain. And for me personally, I don't think blockchain is, necessarily the next revolution for the space, as people quote, or like exactly the next revolution for the internet. But for sure, there are many benefits where we don't really see in the current internet space, such as, say, a lot of the things that we do in science, to be fair, is quite, like based on your relationship with somebody else or based on your connection to somebody else. So could we potentially make that more efficient in this space? That's one of the things which I think blockchain is going to be able to solve. And there was a lot of encryption technologies in the space. I'm really optimistic about how we can potentially protect people's data. So data privacy is another thing in science, right? And that's something that with ZK knowledge, zero knowledge proofs, and so on and so forth, we can potentially overcome. I just think as a fund for Backed, if anything, the crash last year really helped us to kind of reiterate our focus in Web3, because a lot of the valuations have started to come down. A lot of the tourist money started to exit the space. A lot of the tourist funders started to exit the space. So whoever stays now is likely going to be who's going to be committed to the space. So it also helps us to pick better deals. And personally, as someone who's been in the Web3 space for some time, just based on my knowledge about how the space goes, I believe there will be another bull market to come, and it's probably sooner than people think. I just think Web3 space right now is kind of at its trough, if anything. We are going to see further declines for sure, but it's not too far away from the bottom. So I think that the space has a lot of potential, and a lot of great companies, especially in DeSci, which is just starting, is going to start to emerge in 2023, 2024. And we're so excited to see these founders to be in this room today and also be around the world for us to find them. So yeah, that's our stance.
Thanks, John. I'll come up to ask if anyone has any questions shortly, but just wanted to ask if anyone is looking to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach out, and what are the kinds of things that you're looking for, if anything at all, to guide these founders?
Best you just grab me here and the rest of the panel, I guess. Otherwise, max@aminocollective.com. We are looking for all sorts of either picks and shovels ideas to really further accelerate the space, or more vertically integrated projects. We've heard from a lot of amazing DAOs that really zeroed in on very specific problems in the health space and beyond. This is all super interesting for us. My background is again in biotech, biosynthetic biology. So if you throw in the right hype terms, I'll probably get very interested. So yeah, happy to talk.
Likewise, Lena at Strive.vc, ping me anytime. I think just building on what Sean was saying, these hype cycles, I think of it as like black tulips in the Dutch Golden Age. It will come and go, but real builders solving real problems, difficult problems in the world, that will maintain and that will get funded. And I think at Strive is something, we didn't really jump on crypto, unlike some other funds. We didn't invest in NFTs, we didn't participate in ICOs, and I think it really is about those, mission-led teams that, are really solving things that matter in the world to create a positive place for all of us. So, ping me anytime.
Yes, Laura. And Sean, yeah.
Okay, cool. So you could just find me on our website, Backed VC, and if you go to I think it's team or whatever that's called, you'll find my contact there. Otherwise, you could just find me on Sean@backed.vc. In terms of the investments we look for, anything in Web3, we look at them. And of course, anything in biotech, we look at them. So in that case, anything in DeSci, we look at them. So if you're building in DeSci, feel free to just get in contact with me. For us, it's not only about investments, but also about helping founders to potentially find better product market fit. So if you have any ideas that you want to walk through to see whether it's commercially possible or whether this idea will make sense in the space, what else do you need, or what sort of hiring process you need to go through, feel free to just shoot me a message whenever. Yeah.
Hi, you can find me on LinkedIn, so Laura Modiano, and my email is a bit more complicated. It's Elmodian without Renault at Amazon.com. There are 4 incredible investors here, and I've looked up to Julia my entire career. She really is incredible, I have to say. But the good thing about my job is that I actually work with investors across EMEA, and I've been working with healthcare life science investors specifically for the last 3 years. So outside of this room, if you want to be connected to other investors, do shoot me a message, an email, or try to reach out, because literally my customers are investors, and my job is to connect startups that have potential to investors. We love seeing great stories. In addition to that, as I said, I'm not an investor, but we do have CTO, CXO fellowships specifically for healthcare and Web3. So if we have a cohort of CXOs that are in the DeSci space specifically, we can do structured programs to support them, support you in that space, and we will tailor. We don't just deliver things, but we really try to build things that are specifically building value for the founders in order to really give you the best potential for success. So we are here to support.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes. Oh, 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes. Yes, please.
You want me to scale it out?
Yeah. Okay, got it.
So thank you for a really interesting panel. I'd love to hear where you see, what your LPs think, right, about DeSci in the context of broader Web3. There's going to be funds that are upside down, right? You know, so like not a question about your specific funds, of course, but you know, do your LPs look at DeSci and they call it out to you? You know, like is this an area of specific growth they see? Like where does DeSci fit into the broader Web3 footprint from an LP perspective?
I can take this one. Great question. Look, I'll tell you this: we are paid to take risks, right? And so, if you want outsized returns, well, guess what? You have to take big risks. And so, I think back to those fundamentals, like real projects will sustain. If we were, you know, just chasing the hype, well, now we have massive markdowns, and so these are not very happy, and so some funds are for sure in trouble. But you know, at the end of the day, for builders, again, I think, you know, lots of great companies are built in downturns, and it really is, you know, we need to think about the cash flow. We need to be prudent with managing the funds, but great companies will raise and great companies will be built. So I think LPs are all aligned with that.
Another question? Yes, Connell.
I'll yell out as well. So there's loads of interesting ideas floating around this space and loads of interesting technologies that you touched on. But what's less obvious to me is what are the really exciting business cases or business models that you're most interested in. So I'm wondering what you think are the most promising business models, and do all of them require tokens, or is there other ways these companies will be?
So I mean, like personally, I'm super interested in how IP NFT can be interoperable with other infrastructures in the space. But I mean, things like DeFi. So say for example, if you have an IP NFT, how could you potentially put an AMM pool, so automated market makers around that, or could we leverage that, or you know, long short that? To that, you know, it's not exactly what scientists might be, you know, paying attention to, at least not me when I was at school. But what I came to realize was that a lot of the potential applications around blockchain is built around DeFi. And for anything to gain significant attention, whether there was NFT, whether there was GameFi, whether there was any innovations we saw in the blockchain space in the past few years, you need to kind of find a way to be interoperable with the DeFi space. And that's one of the keys to getting market adoption. So for me, I'm really interested to see how we can potentially do IP, NFT-fi, or something like that to play with DeFi. Yeah.
I think we're done. Thank you, everyone. We can grab us after.